Fight fans, welcome to the PBC Podcast, brought to you by Premier Boxing Champions with your host, Kenneth Bouhairie and Michael Rosenthal.
Welcome to the PBC Podcast. I'm Kenneth Bouhairie, and he is USA Today boxing junkie editor Michael Rosenthal. The weather is getting a little chilly outside, but boxing is heating up a bit. Some good fights coming up, but I feel like all the news, at least today, has centered around word that the third match between Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury will not take place in December, if at all. The fight was first supposed to take place in July. Obviously, that didn't occur because of pandemic, and then October was discussed, but ultimately December was decided upon because the promoters didn't want to miss out on the added revenue of having fans in attendance. However, according to promoter Bob Arum, who promotes Fury, both Fox and ESPN are saying December doesn't work for them. They offer two dates, one in late January, another in February. Arum says Fury does not want to wait and will take a fight before then. Of course, one has to wonder what the paperwork really says and if we'll see a third bout or if Fury will attempt to fight unified champion Anthony Joshua instead of Wilder. None of us really know right now. We do know that Aaron mentioned 3 potential opponents for Fury. I believe he mentioned 5 in another later interview, but I'm going to assume that those first 3 have a leg up on the other 2, and they are Oscar Rivas, Aja Caballel, and Efe Ajagba. Some fairly interesting choices there, Mike. What's your take?
Yeah, he kind of spilled the beans as to the level of opponent that they're looking for, which is sort of a second tier guy who probably won't push him very hard. It's interesting. Before Arum came out with that list, I came up with my own, and I had Caballel and Efe Ajagba on my list too. I also thought of a guy like Carlos Takam or Johan Duhaupas. I think all these guys are basically the same level guys. I don't think these guys are going to push him too hard. I mean, if he decides he wants to go make a more interesting fight, I think those are mildly interesting. Maybe Ajagba's the most interesting because he was a guy that's considered, a good prospect who could be really good one day. But if he really wanted to go interesting, maybe go with a guy like Robert Helenius, who recently beat Adam Kaunatsky. Or how about this? This is a fun one I thought of. How about Andy Ruiz? I think Fury probably beats him, but that fight would generate a ton of interest. I don't know. Maybe Otto Wallin. Maybe he deserves a rematch.
I'd love a rematch.
Yeah. So there's a lot of guys out there. It's not as if he doesn't have possibilities. I'm just not too excited about the list that Arum came up with.
Yeah, and I think obviously they're going to choose from that list. So we're wishing, we're dreaming when we're thinking of guys like Andy Ruiz. I think Otto Wallin definitely deserves a shot, but I don't see that happening. By process of elimination, I guess out of the names they mentioned, I like Rivas the most. I see that being the most competitive, although I don't believe he has much of a shot at beating Fury. And one thing to point out, Rivas is also ranked number 8 by the WBC, the title Fury holds. So there's that. After that, I could see Caballel, especially if it's overseas. To me, Ajagba is a long shot. I don't believe he's ready for that next step. He looked really lackluster.
Could stunt his career.
Month.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then 2 fights ago he got dropped. Yeah. So I'm not sure, and I don't know. I could see them letting him develop a bit more and see where his ceiling is. So I don't see that fight happening. Of course, the fight I want to see is, Wilder Fury 3. But if it's not next, Mike, who might Deontay Wilder face in the interim? Well,
that depends on what level guy he wants to fight. Does he want to jump in with a second tier guy and just, get a win under his belt after what happened in the last fight? Maybe you fight a guy like a Charles Martin or a Gerald Washington, guy at that level. Who Deontay probably takes out, or if you want somebody better, there's better options out there. Honestly, if I were advising him, I'm not saying this is a blessing because that's an enormous payday that he might be losing with Fury, but I might advise him, listen, fight a second tier guy after what happened, get a win under your belt, sort of ease back into it, and then let's see what happens.
Yeah, maybe he does that. I mean, it doesn't seem like he would have much of a choice if the third fight does not happen over the next 4 or 5 months or so. And I think he does wait and see. And if he has to wait some more, I could see him I can't see him dropping too far down in terms of level of opposition. I could see him fighting the winner of the rematch between Povetkin and Dillian White, Alexander Povetkin and Dillian White. That's which would not be an easy task. But the winner of that fight may end up being the WBC mandatory. So it might make sense for Deontay to fight one. Or, of course, a name you just mentioned, and I'd love to see a showdown versus former champion Andy Ruiz Jr., who's ranked number 4 by the WBC. So those are, great fights that I wouldn't mind seeing. I think it's unlikely that we get them, given what's happening, given the route that Fury's going. So either way, this story is far from over. Now, another interesting blurb that emerged these past few days has to do with former welterweight champion Kell Brook, who is slated to face WBO 147-pound champion Terrence Crawford on November 14th. There was a recent interview with Brook's longtime trainer Dominic Ingle, who says he will not be training Brook for this fight. Brook isn't even in camp in Sheffield where he typically trains. And of course, a lot of people are wondering what's going on. Mike, could the loss of Ingle hurt Brook in such a big fight?
Yeah, first, I just thought it was interesting the way it came down. I've never really heard of the coronavirus has kind of changed everything. But Ingle just doesn't want to he wants to be in charge. He doesn't want to go to Spain. Right. And train him in Spain. So he just said, listen, I'm not going there. It's too risky with the coronavirus. At any rate, parting ways with your longtime trainer going into such a big fight is always alarming to me. You're removing an anchor that has been there for a long, long time. And that can't be easy. I don't know who he has been or will be working with. I'm talking about Brook. Maybe he found somebody with whom he's comfortable. I don't know. And who knows, maybe Brook to change anyway, but to me it just seems risky going into a fight this big to do something like that.
Yeah, it really does, and for some, I think it underscores the belief that maybe Brook is just doing this for one last payday, rather than really trying to come back. Just last week I was researching when I saw that interview. I was like, man, who has he been training with? Why does this guy not want to train him? And I found something late September last year where Brook was talking about he's reuniting with Ingle, that he's not retiring. And now we get this. I mean, Brook, he hasn't fought in 3 to 4 years. He hasn't faced a solid opponent in that time, neither. And at 34, his best days may be behind him. At welterweight, they may be even further back. So I'm not sure what the strategy is here, except maybe he's cutting cost. On his way to this fight.
It almost sounds like I don't know this, but it almost sounds like he's mailing it in.
Yeah, it sounds like, I'll just get in there, do what I got to do, and, collect my check at the end of the day. It's going to be what it's going to be.
I hope not. I hope we get a good fight.
Yeah, I hope not either. And I think Brook at his best does give a good fight. We just don't know. I mean, there are very few people, if any, outside Brook's circle who are giving him a chance to win going in. And now I feel like there'll be even less, but we shall see. All right, with that, let's jump into this week's action as we take a look at the lightweight unification between Vasily Lomachenko and Teofimo Lopez. Mike, it's a fight we've been waiting for seemingly since forever, and now it is upon us this weekend. The anticipated lightweight unification showdown is going down. Vasily Lomachenko versus Teofimo Lopez. Lomachenko, the experienced veteran, holder of 2 to 3 world titles currently, depending on who's counting, a future Hall of Famer, a master technician, facing Lopez, the undefeated 22-year-old hard-hitting trash talker from Brooklyn, New York. Lots of variables here, but let's get down to business. Mike, in your opinion, what does Lomachenko need to do in order to win?
I think he just needs to do what he does. Box, box, box. He needs to attack Lopez with the controlled aggression he always demonstrates, using that footwork, his amazing footwork, to remain in, the best position at all times, which is what he does. And he needs to be alert, especially in this case. He knows Lopez has the kind of power that could change a fight in a split second. He has to keep that in mind at all times. And I have no doubt that he'll do all that. Listen, he's been in a similar position many times when you consider his long amateur career. He's not going to be overcome by the moment or the reputation of his opponent or anything else. He's just going to do his thing.
Yeah, I agree with you as far as he just needs to do what he always does. I think he needs to be on his game, completely focused for 12 rounds, particularly early on. I think it's in his best interest to frustrate Lopez in the early going, avoid exchanges, mind his distance, work the younger man's body. He has to take him into deep waters and try to drown him, or at the very least leave him there and swim to shore before he can catch up. I think if he can throw Lopez off his game plan early, perhaps make him panic in the middle to later rounds, he can wear him down and pull away to win comfortably, maybe even hurt him and possibly stop him. Now, what about Lopez, who is brimming with confidence despite being the underdog? What does he need to do in order to win?
I think we're thinking along the same lines here. I think Lopez needs to be patient. That's the first thing that came into my mind. That could be the key for him. He's a young fighter in the biggest fight of his life. I could see him getting excited by the moment, or maybe frustrated, is the word you used, by Lomachenko, and starting to look for big punches, which can always backfire. If I were him, I'd try to maintain my belief in my own skills and wait for opportunities to present themselves instead of chasing them. Let the fight come to him. And as good as Lomachenko is, Lopez probably will have some opportunities. He then needs to take advantage of those opportunities.
Yeah, I think he has to be prepared to eat some shots. He may need to be prepared to take one or take two to land one, and that's risky business because he's not lauded for his punching power, but I think it's underrated in the way that a Mayweather's punching power is sort of underrated. It's certainly respectable, and if he hits you enough times, you're going to be hurt. I think Lopez has to be ready to lead. He has to be ready to counter, and he must work the body. I think that will be key, particularly if he can't get Lomachenko out there early. He has got to work the body. I thought that more than anything, that's why Salido had success against Lomachenko. And I do recall Floyd Mayweather saying he believed that the only way to beat Lomachenko was to break him down to the body. Look, Lopez has got a really difficult task in front of him, and he can't go looking for just one shot. He's got to keep picking the lock until it finally breaks open. So with that said, let's get our predictions in. Mike, who do you got?
Okay, so first, I think the notion that Lomachenko is in decline is sort of off base. I acknowledge that Jorge Linares gave him some trouble, as did Luke Campbell, but he won both those fights. The first one by knockout and the second one by a wide decision. Every great fighter has challenging moments. I think, Lomachenko remains the best fighter in the world, which is why he's number one on the Boxing Junkie pound for pound list. And I think he'll be more motivated for this fight than maybe any fight in his career. I think that actually might have been a problem with Lomachenko, last few years. I think we're going to see that on Saturday. I think he'll show Lopez things that he's never seen. I think he'll outbox him. He'll wear him down and break him down. And he might just stop him late in the fight. My prediction is Lomachenko by unanimous decision.
I figured that, and I think that's the right pick. I mean, Lomachenko is rightfully the favorite here, and I have him winning a unanimous. I don't have him winning a unanimous decision, but I would say him winning a unanimous decision is a safe bet. So that's why I'm picking Teofimo Lopez to win. I know I could end up being way wrong and looking bad, but no risk, no reward.
Not that big of a risk. Yeah.
What I think it is. I think it is simply because Lomachenko is a special fighter. He's not very easy to beat. Lopez hasn't fought anyone near his caliber, but I like the spice of life. So here I am. And you're right. I guess it's not that big because then it wouldn't be that big of a fight, right? Look, Lopez is going to be very dangerous early on. Lomachenko hasn't fought in 14 months. He's a few months from 33, which in those divisions I think is fairly old. And although you pointed out his last couple fights, you said even the great ones have not so great nights. I don't think it's a coincidence that those great nights, not so great nights, occurred at 135 pounds. Because
I wanted to talk about that.
Yeah, he had plenty of great nights in the lower divisions, and now he faces the biggest, strongest 135 pounder he's encountered as a pro. A guy who's 22 years old, who's touted for greatness, can box, can punch, is brash, is hungry. So it'll be treacherous early on as he tries to avoid the heat-seeking missiles that Lopez will send his way. That's what I think Lopez is going to try to do, is he's going to try to walk through this guy. Now, I could see Lomachenko frustrating Lopez here if he makes it out of those early rounds. I really think it's going to come down to Lopez's mental toughness. That's the X factor. If he can't get Lomachenko out of there early, can he apply a game plan? And does he have the mental and physical stamina to stick to it for 12 rounds against a mental ninja in Lomachenko, who actually beats opponents before they even get in the ring. And then if you had any ounce of confidence, when you get in there, he takes it away very quickly. Now, I love trainer Joey Gamache returning to Lopez's corner. Gamache, a former two-time world champion. He studied under the late Manny Stewart. He worked closely with Vladimir Klitschko, and now he trains Otto Wallin, who surprised everyone against Tyson Fury. Gamache was enlisted by Teofimo for his last bout. When he fought for the world title versus Richard Comey, we saw what happened. Teofimo knocked him out in 2 rounds. And now Gamache is back for an encore. I like what he brings to the young fighter. Gamache really understands the nuances of the game, technique, how to fight on the inside, the dirty little tricks. He knows it all. And not only that, most importantly, the key here is that I'm a fellow New Yorker. So I'm going with my boy from Brooklyn, Teofimo Lopez, in a changing. I know it gets me every time.
It's backfired for you a couple of times.
Right.
Let me tell you why I think that it's not that big of a risk. But you sort of just alluded to it, or you actually did allude to it. The 2 fights that I mentioned, the Campbell fight and the Linares fight, were both at 135. And I think if he had problems, and he did, size might have been one of the key factors. I'm just not sure he's a natural 100. In fact, I'm pretty sure he's not a natural 135 pounder. So I think that Lopez is going to have a significant, no matter what happens, I think he's going to have a significant size advantage in that fight, maybe a strength advantage too. And then the second thing is, Lopez might just turn out to be as good as we think he is, or he appears to be. We just don't know. That's the thing. Richard Comey is probably his best opponent to date. So this is a big step up for him, but he might be as good as we think. So if you combine his size and strength and his possible ability, I mean, that's a pretty formidable fighter.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I think about it, prior to his fight against Nakatani, Lopez was just blowing through the opposition, and people thought, my goodness, this guy is going to be, one of the next kings of boxing. And then he fights Nakatani, and he struggles for 12 rounds. Now, we know he had some, outside the ring issues. Didn't look like he had the greatest preparation. He did win that fight, but it was much, much tougher than expected. And after that, it just seemed like all the hype sort of died down, and maybe he wasn't that good, or maybe he was a flash in the pan. But you look at what he did after that. He's had only 1 fight, but it was against the best fighter he's faced in Comey, a genuine B+ fighter, and he blew him out in 2 rounds. So was he exposed against Nakatani, or was that the outlier? I don't know, and I think it goes back to the mental toughness thing. If he's got the mental toughness, then I think he can wear Lomachenko down. If he doesn't, then he's going to be a world of trouble. This might end up looking like Hopkins Trinidad. I really don't know, but I'm going to go with my guy. Go early, and then he puts him away in the middle rounds.
Cannot wait.
Yeah, I can't either. I am pumped. Now, Mike and I are tied in our prediction league at 23-5, so I know he's salivating right now. But I'll be more than glad to share whatever texts he'll send me on Saturday night as he tries to make sense of what he just saw. And this is one of those fights where we're going to be texting back and forth, or you may not hear from me for the rest of the night, Mike. I don't know. We'll see what happens during the fight.
I'm going to serve up a cliche. I just hope we get a good fight. I really do. I hope it lives up to. It's going to be hard for it to live up to this hype, but I hope it does.
Yeah, I think anything that happens is going to be great, barring a disqualification or something crazy. I just think there'll be something to talk about on Sunday morning, as long as we get a clear winner. I think we're going to see a good fight. Now, with that, it's time to bring in this week's guest. Speaking of good fights, someone who truly needs no introduction. He's a 4-time world champion, one of the great fighters of today. And on Saturday, October 31st, he faces Gervonta Tank Davis in an epic headliner on Showtime pay-per-view in front of fans at the Alamo Dome in San Antonio, Texas. I'm talking about El Terremoto, Leo Santa Cruz. Leo, you've been in so many big fights. Does this one feel any different?
Yeah, it does. I think this is the biggest fight of my career, the hardest one. Fighting a younger fighter. He's a superstar. He has great punches, great power. So we know we got to go with everything in this fight. We're well prepared, and, we're doing a great training camp, and we have to go out there and look our best, and hopefully that's what we're going to try to do.
You said your training camp has been great. What's making it so great? How has it been going?
My dad's been there with me in the gym, telling me how to fight Tank Davis, what punches to throw, the style I have to, fight to go out there and beat him. And, I have to be cautious, smart, not get hit with those big punches that he throws, that he does have the power. And just having my dad there with me in the gym is an extra motivation because he's there with me. That's what I wanted. And that's what matters, having my dad by my side, supporting me and going into the fight with me.
Leo, Showtime has had their all-access crew filming you guys. Is that something you enjoy, or do you prefer a little bit more peace while you're training?
The truth, I've never gotten used to, the cameras and everything, Having there with me, it gets me a little bit worried and nervous, and at the same time, because I know they're right there watching us, and I get a little bit stressed out from all those things, because I want to, try to look good and everything for the cameras and try to please them. But sometimes it's hard, so I just get frustrated and everything. But I try to get used to it, but I can't.
I remember interviewing you very early in your career, and I think you've come a long way in terms of being interviewed by the media. Do you feel you have?
Yeah, I do. I don't get as nervous. I still, of course, I get nervous and everything, but I'm taking it, much better now, and I'm more calm, and I'm just trying to get used to it, even though I don't think I'll ever get used to it, no matter how long I've been doing it. I don't get used to it, but I know I do get better, and I got better, since a long time ago.
Leo, you'll be rid of us at some point. So, now you said you're sparring with bigger guys in preparation for Tank's power. Have you felt a difference in their size and their power and their punches?
Yeah, the punches are much harder. They're heavier. It gets you more tired and everything. But, I have to do it. I have to go out there with bigger guys. I have to get used to them so that way I could take, Gervonta's power. And once I get up there with him, it'll make it easier for me to fight how I want to fight and get to try to do the perfect fight.
Leo, a lot has been made of Tank's power. What do you think of his boxing skill?
I think his boxing skills are great too. He boxes really good. He throws good shots. The only thing is that he doesn't throw as much punches. He doesn't throw a lot of combinations. But every punch he throws is good, perfect, and he just you gotta watch out for those big punches. But he's a great fighter, and the only thing is his conditioning. That's the only thing that he lacks, and that is a minus in him.
Mm. Now, obviously, you can hurt him, too. Do you think that that's being overlooked?
Yeah, I think it's been overlooked. I know I'm not maybe a big puncher, but if you land a perfect shot, I know I could hurt him, too. We're going to work to the body. Right there, it doesn't matter how strong you are. If you get land a good shot in the body, you go always hurt him. He's not going to be able to take it, and that's what we're going to try to do.
Now, Leo, you're a volume puncher, which is one of the main factors in your success. Yeah. Where did that style come from?
I think that style comes from when I was small. When I got in the ring for the first time, since when the bell rang, I just went at it and I started throwing a lot of punches, because I know that when you throw a lot of punches, the other fighter or the opponent, he doesn't know what to do. It frustrates him having a fighter just on top of you, pressuring you, throwing punches. It doesn't let you, think. It doesn't let you adjust. And so I said, this is how I have to fight all the time. I just got to train in the gym hard like that all the time, and fighter is going to like that.
So obviously, to fight in that style, you have to have stamina. What do you do to build stamina in the gym or on the road or wherever it is that you're doing that?
I think that stamina I get in the gym, Of course, the running is great and everything, but some people say that if you run, you have to get the stamina. You have to run like an hour, 2 hours. Me, I just run like 40 minutes, and I still have that stamina. I think that the main stamina that you get that is in the gym. My dad always tells me that I have 3 minutes in each round, and that during those 3 minutes, I have to be working, moving. Even if I'm not throwing, I have to throw little punches or move, and always keep my hands up. And that's what I always try to do in the gym. Every time I'm hitting the bags, I'm throwing during the 3 minutes, and then the minute I get a rest, that's when I rest, and then the next round comes, and I'm throwing punches. And I think that's the thing that has given the stamina, because I'm always in the gym, hitting the bag during those 3 minutes, and That's how we do it. Because, other fighters, they hit the bag, they throw one or two punches, and they stop for a few seconds, and then they throw another one or two punches, and they stop. I'm always in the gym, hitting the bag, throwing punches after to the bell rings.
Speaking of stamina and throwing a lot of punches, a lot of folks thought Tank showed some stamina issues when he stopped Yoriokas Gamboa last December. You kind of alluded to his conditioning. What did you make of that performance from him?
Yeah, he didn't look that good in that performance. He was throwing wide punches. He was missing a lot. He looked like he wanted to knock him out and got a little bit frustrated. But that's not. I don't underestimate him because of that performance. I know with this performance it's gonna be different. I know he's been training hard, so I never get confident in any fight. Not because he looked bad in that one. I'm gonna get carried away and say, oh, he looked bad in the last fight, so he's gonna come and look like that in this fight. No, of course, I know he's gonna come at his best. He's a dangerous fighter, and I just gotta be, really smart and do a great fight.
Now, in your last fight, you won a clear unanimous decision over Miguel Flores. Yet afterwards, you acknowledged, you said you didn't feel like you gave an A performance in that fight. Were you still adjusting to the difference in size and the new weight class?
Yeah, I think it was that, my first fight at 130, I was adjusting and everything. And also, like I said, I got sick before that fight. A week before, right. I got fever. I had fever for 3 days. And the fight week, I was still sick. I had a runny nose. I didn't really try to show it because I didn't want the people to see that I was sick. And I was worried because I didn't feel as strong. And, in the camp, the 2 weeks before, I was feeling strong. Even my sparring partners were saying that I looked strong, that I was really looking really good and everything. But then the next week came, and that's when I got fever for 3 days. And I lost a little bit of the power. And when fight day came, I didn't feel as strong as I was feeling in camp and everything. But I think it was all because I got sick, and I was still a little bit sick during fight week. So I think that's what made the difference.
That's crazy. When I get sick, I can't even move, and you're fighting for a world title.
Yeah, I know I had to. I have done all the hard work and everything, and I went out there and still fought no matter what.
Good for you. Are you more comfortable at 130 now? Now that you have that fight under your belt, and you've been training for a fight at 130?
Yes, of course. I feel much better. I feel stronger. This is the biggest I have gotten. When every other camps, the most I go was like 142, 141, and for this camp, the biggest it was a 148, and I wasn't even fat. I was, muscle, and because I was, working with my strength conditioning coach, Andy Aguilar, and I went up to 148, and I look at myself, and I didn't even look fat. I think my body is growing, I'm getting bigger, and it is, muscle and hard work.
So I'm guessing that you probably feel stronger now than you ever have in your career then.
Yeah, I have, also my one-on-one sparring partners that they're in the gym. I've been sparring with him for a couple of years, and he says that this is the camp that he feels is the strongest. That sometimes I get him to the body, and I heard him that he want to go down, but he's a strong fighter too, and he doesn't go down.
Wow, good timing. So you said that you believe Davis will make 130 pounds a day before the fight, but you've also said that that's been a concern. Maybe you can give us your thoughts on that. And is there a penalty if he comes in overweight?
Yeah, there is a penalty. If he comes overweight, I think there's going to be money deducted from him or something like that. I think he have to pay money or something, I don't know. But also, we're going to try to, make it go as low as he can. And we know that after we weigh in the next day, he's going to probably go up in weight. And we're going to try to make it that for him not to go too much up in weight. We're going to try to make it in the contract or something that maybe the most he grew up is like 10 or 15 pounds, no more than that, because we know if he puts up too much weight, there's going to be a big advantage for him. Because me, the most, I think after weighing, the most I gain is like 6-7 pounds. That's it.
Oh. Leo, you're a 4-division world champion. You've faced better opposition, yet you're the underdog going in. Do you feel disrespected by that?
No, I don't feel disrespected or nothing at all. The fans, they could, say whatever they want. and that's their opinion. And it's just my job to go out there and try to prove them wrong. I'm just gonna train hard. They motivate me to train hard and just try to prove them wrong, and that's what we're gonna try to do. This is boxing. Anything could happen up in the ring. I just want to go out there, give a great fight, and get the win.
Now, we've discussed the volume punching. You're known for applying pressure, but we've seen you box as well, like you did in the rematch versus Carl Frampton. Do you expect you'll have to do that against Davis?
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm going to have to do that because, like I said, I think there is a big puncher. I know he's the bigger guy, and if he catches me, we know he could hurt me. So we got to, be smart right from the outside. And, of course, we're going to try to fight there inside with him. And if we see that he lands some good shots and doesn't hurt me or he can't drop me, we're going to stay there and, put the pressure, be on top of him, trying to frustrate him, break him down. But if we feel that he's strong and that he could hurt me, of course, we're going to, move out on the outside and keep him from the outside with my jab and my long reach.
And that that leads right into my next question. I know you want to put on a good show, go toe-to-toe at times, like you mentioned, but how do you balance giving the fans a good fight, yet you still remain respectful of his power?
Yeah, I think when I have the chance, I'm gonna still throw punches. Because sometimes when a fighter throws punches, the other fighter doesn't throw. He can't think or stuff. So I think I'm gonna throw my combinations. Land good shots, make the fans happy, excited, scream, and then I'm gonna move out of there. And then again, throw my combinations, land them, take good shots, and I think they'll go home happy with that because I'm gonna be smart. Landing some good shots, hitting him, and then moving out of there.
Leo, you're fighting for titles at both 130 and 135, meaning you'd be a title holder in 5 divisions if you win. That's crazy, right?
Yeah, of course, it is crazy. I never thought I was going to be in this position. I never thought I was going to be a multi-division world champion. My dream was always to become a world champion, and I even thought to become a world champion at one division was going to be really hard. And it was hard and everything, but now I'm a 4-division world champion. I have the opportunity to become a 5-division world champion. It's something unimaginable. I never dream of, but I'm here and I'm gonna take fully advantage of that, and I'm gonna leave everything in the ring to try to accomplish that and continue to make history.
So I'll have to give you the obligatory question that you might not want to answer. Do you have a prediction?
My prediction is that I'm going to go out there and give a great fight for the fans. I'm going to win by decision, because we know Tank is a, bigger guy. He might be able to take my punches and everything, but he might not be able to take my volume punches. And at the end of the day, I think my volume is going to be too much for him, and we're going to get the unanimous decision win.
Hey, Leo, I have one or two more questions real quick, actually. I was just thinking to myself, because the fans often ask us about, when you fight, sometimes you shake your right hand. I feel like a right hand is coming. Are you concerned at all that maybe someone is studying that, like Tank is studying that, and maybe will try and throw a punch when you do that? Is there a method to when you do that?
No, I don't think so, because people have said that, fighters that have fought, they say, oh, we know when he's going to throw because he shakes his hand, but they say that they have no idea when I throw the right hand, because I shake it and I don't throw it, or sometimes I shake it and I throw it. They just, confuse them. I think sometimes it even drops them out of their game plan, because it's just unpredictable when I'm going to throw my right hand. But, I shake my hand a lot of times, so it's just unpredictable, and I don't think there's going to be no fight.
Got it. Well, Leo, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us. We wish you all the best Saturday, October 31st on Showtime Pay-Per-View, and we look forward to having you on afterward.
No, thank you very much. I'll be gladly to come back. Hope you guys a great fight, and, we both come out healthy from the fight.
Man, I am pumped for Davis versus Santa Cruz. Both those guys sound ready, and I just can't wait. All right, it's time for Mike and I to go toe-to-toe. You guys already know how we do. Every week we debate or discuss a topic or two, and I think this week's topic ought to be a peaceful one. Mike and I are both Hall of Fame voters, and we are going to share who our top 5 Hall of Fame candidates are. Now, you can select up to 5 candidates, but Mike, I think there's Little note that our readers, our listeners should know about.
Yeah, we just wanted to mention that only the top three vote getters are guaranteed to be inducted, which is really a problem this year because, in my opinion, there are five no-brainers. I mean, guys that need to go in, almost need to go in on the first ballot. So that numbers 4 and 5 can still get in, but under a recently changed rule or recently instituted rule, they have to be on 80% of the ballots. That's not impossible, but I think it's difficult. It didn't happen last year, the first year that was used. So my hope is that because I believe all five guys should go in, my hope is that numbers 4 and 5 get on 80% of the ballots, because if they don't, they can still get in next year. But then that complicates things the following year. Maybe that pushes somebody else out. So it's a complicated thing.
Yeah, I think it's going to be tough for 4 and 5 both to get in. Perhaps one, but when it gets to that point, just so many different opinions and so forth, and guys to choose from. I struggled with my fifth one, so I could see that being an issue. Now, my first candidate for the Hall of Fame this year, I think, is a no-brainer. He's probably on everybody's list, and if he's not, you need your head examined. Floyd Money Mayweather, his first ballot, first year that he's up for induction, and I think he gets in with flying colors. We know what he's accomplished. Retired undefeated, 5-division champion, 15 time world champion, beat 25 past or present world champions. I mean, beat a who's who from 130 to 154. The list of accomplishments go on and on and on. Outside the ring, obviously the most lucrative boxer in the history of the sport, one of the biggest names ever, one of the greatest fighters ever, without question.
I can't vote for Mayweather. I'm joking. It's one of these rare situations where you don't even need to discuss it. Excuse me, as you said, undefeated, biggest figure in the sport, which is also something that's important. Just couldn't be more obvious.
Yeah, I think so. So with that, let's just move on to the next one, who, quite frankly, is also fairly obvious. Let's see who you got for your second pick.
Well, we're thinking of the same guy, Andre Ward. Also undefeated. He won the Super 6 World Boxing Classic as a relatively young fighter. He won titles in 2 divisions, and he didn't take many gimmies in his 32 fights. Consider who he defeated. Excuse me again. Edison Miranda, Mikkel Kessler, Alan Green, Sakio Bika, Arthur Abraham, Carl Froch, Chad Dawson, Edwin Rodriguez, Sullivan Barrero, and Sergey Kovalev twice.
Wow.
It's pretty remarkable that in just 32 fights he did all that. Special fighter, one of the best that I've ever seen. He had a remarkable career.
Yeah, I wish injuries didn't cut it short, because he was marvelous to watch, and to think that he came back after that layoff and to stop Sergey Kovalev. Who knows what he could have done after that? Whether he moved up, whether he would have stayed at 175. Could you imagine him against like Beterbiev and Godsick and Dmitry Bivol or Canelo? All those guys, great fights that we didn't get a chance to see. And he's also on my list. He's my number 2 guy. Now my number 3 is longtime heavy champion Vladimir Klitschko. I also think this is a no-brainer. This guy was number 1 at the top of the division for nearly a decade. Beat almost everybody. Had I feel like he had 2 or 3 careers, tied into one, because he fought in so many different eras, and he was always at or near the top of each era. But we know how it ended, and he ultimately lost to Tyson Fury when he was 40 years old, and even when he returned against Anthony Joshua, still showed what a great fighter he was. I don't know if either one of those guys would have beat him in his prime, but Vladimir Klitschko, who I thought was underrated throughout much of his career, certainly is a first ballot Hall of Famer.
No doubt. Another one that you barely need to discuss. Excuse me. He had the second longest individual heavyweight reign in history, behind Joe Louis. And if you combine his reigns, he had the longest ever. In other words, he served as heavyweight title holder longer than anybody else. He won 25 heavyweight title fights, which is just nuts. That's more fights than some guys have in their career. Yes, he had some bad losses early in his career, but he demonstrated brilliance, I thought, by bouncing back every time. He overcame that, which I think also says a lot about him. And you mentioned the Joshua fight. I love the way he went out on his shield. Yeah, he lost, but man, look at the way he lost. I think we need to mention that he didn't fight in an era with a deep heavyweight talent pool. But it's still impossible to argue against him as a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of that's been said about the heavyweights since sort of the 70s regarding the talent pool there. Oh, it's not the greatest. But he certainly dominated his era, without question. So, all right, now it's time for the candidates that may or may not get in. Those are our three solid. I think those three should get in. I'd be surprised if they didn't get in, but
I think they will.
Yeah, the other two candidates, we'll see what happens. Again, there's so many other names on the ballot. Who knows? But Mike, who do you have at number 4?
I have a guy I think is almost as much of a no-brainer as the other guys, James Toney. Toney was one of the most gifted fighters of all time, I think. He was a force from middleweight all the way up to cruiserweight, and he even had some success at heavyweight. He beat Evander Holyfield when Holyfield was still pretty good. He won titles at 160, 168, and at cruiserweight. Big gap there from 168 to cruiserweight, by the way. His skill set was just through the roof, and he also had an incredible chin. You just couldn't hurt this guy. Yeah. The sad thing about Toney is what might have been. Had he had the work ethic of, say, a Floyd Mayweather or Evander Holyfield, God knows what he could have accomplished. As it was, he was one of the best of his generation.
Yeah, I agree with you regarding the work ethic, and it's amazing to see what he accomplished without that sort of high-level elite work ethic that we're accustomed to seeing from the greats. But he was truly one of the most skilled fighters I ever saw, and he was just beautiful to watch. Accomplishments aside, he was just fun to watch. I mean, he could fight any style at close range, up, in a phone booth, at a distance, defense, offense, footwork, the jab, power, chin, everything. All of his fights were absolutely enjoyable and at times breathtaking. And without question, he's, as I said, one of the best fighters I've ever seen. I don't know how he doesn't get in on the first ballot. That would be criminal. Now, he's also, by the way, my number 4. My last name, and I'm assuming we both have the same name, another person who I think should get in, but may not because of the rules of the Hall of Fame voting, Miguel Cotto. Now, Cotto won titles from 140 to 160. Beat a who's who, faced a who's who, had some tremendous nights, had some tough losses, but always entertained and proved himself to be one of the finest fighters of this era. Yeah, Mike, I'm concerned that he may not get in.
Yeah, you could be right. I hope you're not. Just for clarity's sake, we ended up with the same 5 guys because it was just so obvious that these were the 5 guys that needed to get our votes. I mean, this was like took me the least research of any year of voting. It was just so clear, and he still might not get in. Arguably the most accomplished fighter from Puerto Rico, although he has some stiff competition there, obviously. You mentioned some of these things. Won major titles in four divisions. Was an elite guy for almost 15 solid years, seemingly forever. He has a long list of impressive victories over top guys. I think he showed some vulnerability as he moved up to 154 and then 160. He's probably a natural 147 pounder, maybe at his peak, but even at the higher weights, he still had success, winning titles in both divisions. That just shows you how good the guy was. When I think of Cotto, I think of consistency. He was just so consistent. What a great fighter.
Yeah, he certainly was, and so many great fighters on the ballot, and I'll be pleasantly surprised if we see all 5 there. But no matter who gets in, I don't think we'll have any complaints this year.
Another sad element to this, if sad's the right word, is that there are other guys who I think are really deserving, who I think basically have no chance because of the format, unfortunately, and hopefully they'll get in one day. But guys like, and I'm actually physically looking at the list right now, Tim Bradley is one guy that jumps out at me. I'm just picking names. Yoel Casamayor, maybe, Diego Corrales, Carl Froch, Genaro Hernandez to me was one of the better guys of his era. The late great Genaro. Going to the Rafael Marquez to me, I think is maybe the number 1 guy after the 5 that we mentioned. I think he probably deserves to get in. I don't know, Antonio Tarver, Meldrick Taylor, Fernando Vargas, Israel Vasquez. These are all really, really great fighters. I mean, of those guys, who jumps out To you,
Carl,
it's the most.
Carl Froch and Diego Corrales. I mean, I looked at those two names for a very long time. Diego Corrales, because I believe I'm surprised he's not in the Hall of Fame already. I think he absolutely deserves it. 2-division champion, fought and beat a who's who in those divisions, and gave us one of the greatest fights ever in boxing history, if not the greatest fight, and won. So I believe Diego Corrales should be in there. And Carl Froch was one of my favorite fighters.
Me too. That's interesting.
And he, I mean, you talk about king of trash talk, underrated skill wise. I get a lot of people who say, well, he, didn't have that much skill. Did you see on George Groves in the final fight of his career in front of 80,000 people at Wembley Stadium, as he never fails to remind us?
It shows you how good Andre Ward was, though.
Yes,
I thought Andre handled him.
He did handle him, but a lot of people forget, if you watch that fight again in the last couple 2-3 rounds, Carl Froch was coming on, and maybe Ward took his foot off the gas a little bit, but Carl Froch can hold his head up high from that fight. Yes, he was handled, but I felt like he came on pretty late in that fight, and his battle against Jermaine Taylor, a war, Mikkel Kessler, George Groves. I mean, the list goes on. Carl Froch was a true 168-pounder, subtle, strong, great chin, great power, great jab, great body work. Very underrated fighter, and plus great trash talker. I mean, just a fun fighter, a great fighter. Ended his career with a bang, and I think he's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% everything you said, and I just liked him personally too.
Yeah.
But the thing I think about is Froch. No fighter in history will go out better than he went out in his home country in front of 80,000 people at Wembley Stadium. One punch knockout over his rival, mic drop, career over.
Yeah.
No guy will end his career better than that. It's just not going to happen. But of all these guys, I do think that Rafael Marquez is the guy that jumps out to me as the top guy. And you sort of convinced me recently, and maybe I guess I should have known this. Diego Corrales really does have strong Hall of Fame credentials. So those are the guys that jump out. But you wish all these guys can get in. But that's in a way, it's kind of a good thing to be hard to get into the Hall of Fame, because then it means more.
Yeah, I completely agree with you regarding that, and hopefully one day we see all these guys accept their walk into the Hall of Fame. That's gonna do it for today's show. We want to thank Leo Santa Cruz for joining us. Of course, we're looking forward to seeing him against Gervonta Tank Davis Saturday, October 31st on Showtime Pay-Per-View. Again, there will be fans in attendance at the Alamo Dome in San Antonio, Texas, one of the year's biggest events. We can't wait. Thank you guys, as always, for joining us. Feel free to like and subscribe to the PBC Podcast wherever you're tuning in, from YouTube to iTunes, from Spotify to Stitcher, Spreaker, on and on. And be sure to check us out again next week for more boxing talk right here on the PBC Podcast.